you would lead us off.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Item 3 is the superintendent's report. This is for information only. Superintendent Fueling.
Thank you, President Cassiopo. Tonight we are graced by the presence of royalty. If Mrs. Kramer, would you like to come up and tell us some more about that?
Hi there. I am Tanea Kramer. I'm the leadership advisor at Carson High School, and we had our homecoming last week, and our rep is going to talk all about it for you guys, but we have our homecoming king, and I'll let him introduce himself in a second, and we also had our homecoming queen, Alex Nurska, who unfortunately is not here because she is currently playing a volleyball game against McQueen, but I did just want to tell you a little bit about her and then let Kakoa introduce himself. So her favorite quote is "Attitude reflects leadership," from the best movie ever, Remember the Titans. And after she graduates, she plans to attend Auburn University, majoring in agricultural science. And I'll hand it over to Kakoa. Yep.
Hello, everybody. My name is Keikoa Mitchell. Let me tell you about myself a little bit. I want to major in radiology after high school. I want to be an x-ray tech. That's plan A. Plan B is to major in kinesiology, to be a physical therapist. I chose those because I really find enjoyment in just helping people, and just seeing other people be happy, That's kind of my whole thing. But something that helps me and drives me and is like my motivation is my dad. So I want to give thanks to him, and that he also gave me my quote that I put in the Google form that I had to fill out. It's a little bit silly, so bear with me, please. But what was it? It was go read a book or you're gonna live under a bridge or something. Yeah, my dad is a jokester, so he says some pretty funny stuff sometimes. But even though it's pretty funny, I took it pretty seriously, and it's something that I remember day to day just because, it has some truth to it, So I want to thrive. I want to get smart, go to school, do what I got to do to be successful and do well and represent my family well. So thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.
Well, first of all, congratulations. No, you can work your way back, but just wanted to say congratulations. I think it's fun to be involved in these celebrations and to be, nominated as homecoming king is kind of cool. I knew somebody years ago who was nominated and made it, and it was really had a good time with it. So, but congratulations to you and everybody that was involved.
Thank you, Mrs. Kramer. Other items, last week, Wednesday, we had our Community Connections event at Carson High School in the library to talk a little bit about our English Learner program. Had an excellent turnout and just a great evening with a lot of our parents getting to meet our staff members and lots of good information. So I want to thank Dr. Tanya Scott and all of her colleagues in the EL area for putting that together. Last week, Carson Middle School had an open house, and it was a very well-attended event. I just really enjoyed myself getting around, talking to parents and staff. So that was definitely a highlight last week. And upcoming, and this may come up again in some of the board reports, but October 3rd at the Carson High Tech Center, we're going to have NASA astronaut Jose Hernandez there to talk about his experience to become an astronaut. And it's quite a story. So that is all I have.
Okay, thank you. We're going to move on to Carson and Pioneer High activities. If we could get Chris Eskridge and Caitlin Yanup. And we'll just go with the order I have. We'll start off with the Carson campus and we'll move on to Pioneer.
Good evening. My name is Christopher Ashley Eskridge. And so last week we had our homecoming week and our spirit week and our dance on Saturday. It was very successful. We got a lot of feedback from it. We also had a homecoming parade Friday night at the football game. And we introduced our court and all of our sports. And then we also had our football game, which was very successful. We won against Hug 37-0. And the game was really good and we got a lot of support. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Caitlin Nguyen. I am what some people would say a true hybrid student. That means I take one class at CHS, one class at PHS, and the remainder of my schedule is full-time online. I'm receiving the best educational opportunities I could ask for. Let me tell you about some of the stuff that's going on at Pioneer. I wanted to share that currently Pioneer High has 149 students in seat/hybrid, which counts for 41 seniors, 53 juniors, 35 sophomores, and 20 freshmen. We also have a total of 30 full-time online students. We are also 100% in alignment with our main campus's bell schedule, intervention period, professional learning days, testing sessions, as well as combined talents from both campuses to create the new speech and debate team led by Mrs. Jillian Schufelt. Recently, we held our open house on Thursday, September 12th. We had several families come visit our campus, speak with teachers, meet our new assistant principal, Dr. Molden, but most importantly, enjoy an ice cream. The last week, we celebrated homecoming week with our peers on the main campus. Students and teachers alike dressed up each day, while students took the opportunity to participate in the evening activities, including the football game and dance. The week of October 7th through 11th, we will be participating in our Week of Respect. Every day we'll have a dress-up day and lunchtime activity. All of you are welcome to join us. Thank you for allowing me to share your story.
Thank you very much to both of you. All righty. Next we have announcements. Do we have any association reports? I think that's where this is coming in. I see announcements twice. Yeah, and then we have the reports. I'm sorry. So you're good. Okay. All righty. I don't know why. That seems to be, I get hung up on that lately for some reason. I don't know. So we're going to move on to item 4, board reports, board member comments. This is for information only. And why don't we start with the Nevada Association of School Boards? Rich?
Yeah, I have no update tonight.
One thing, Trustee Varner, that I did think about is Nevada will be hosting the Pacific region in the middle of October, and we are going to be hosting them up in Lake Tahoe, and so it'll be an opportunity for NASB's executive team to work with executive teams from across this region in the United States and kind of problem solve some issues that school boards are facing, and also an opportunity to show off some of our most beautiful areas of the state. So I look forward to that opportunity to show off our state and to also collaborate with peers from across the nation.
Thank you.
Good, thank you. We'll move on to board reports. Trustee Crossman.
Yes. Dr. Ward from Fremont Elementary said that she really doesn't have a board report, but that she would like to put out thanks for the new pool of substitutes and how grateful she is to have those qualified people available when needed. So that is my report.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Varner.
Yes, for Fritch Elementary, Principal Brown wants to remind everyone that Thursday, this coming Thursday, is picture day. So kids all dress up. He also would like to encourage Fritch families to become members of their PTA. And he asked to please help boost their membership by becoming a member. And then for Boardwick, Principal Roquetta reports that they finished their all their grade level meetings last week, and they were a huge success. She would also like to thank everyone who attended. And also, they are beginning their cookie dough fundraiser on September 30th, and it will run through October 14th. So if you need some cookie dough, you know where to get it. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Trustee Walt.
Thank you. I'll start with Mark Twain Elementary School. Principal Virgil would like to remind everybody that Mark Twain Elementary School will be hosting the GSNN Summit this week, Thursday and Friday. Their attendance remains very strong at over 95% average daily attendance, and 60% of these students continue to have perfect attendance, which is 257 students. So I think that is extremely remarkable, and congratulations to those students and to Mark Twain for continuing with their attendance. She would also like to mention that their PTO is planning a fall festival for October 18th. And this will bring the community together and demonstrate their STEM projects. So again, that's October 18th. Principal Carson from Carson High School would like to state by starting that they will be starting their accreditation process shortly with the needs assessment in collaboration with the CHS department leaders. They are excited for the great learning opportunity experience that this will have for them, and to show their strengths and where there is room for improvement. Overall, Carson High continues to have a great start to the school year.
Thank you. Trustee Clapham.
Thank you. From Ms. Crookshanks over at Mark Twain. She's here tonight with Mr. Rodina. Thank you for joining us. They will be holding their fall carnival this Friday night from 5:30 to 7:30. If anybody would like some fun and games, please swing by. There'll be food trucks for meals and plenty for the kids to do. I'm hoping to see Mr. Rodina in the dunk tank if anybody's interested. And from Ms. Robinson over at Carson Middle School, she wanted everyone to know that they had a great turnout for the back to school night last week, as Mr. Fueling said. We'd like to thank everyone who attended. This Friday is Bring Your Hero for Lunch Day. Students are encouraged to invite their heroes to have lunch with them at school. And a Parent Square message was sent out with the lunch for times. We also have parent-teacher conferences coming up towards the end of October. Information will be coming out soon. I was actually the stand-in for my wife. My kids picked my wife to go to Hero Day. She can't go, and then they're like, can you go? So anyway, I'll see you there.
Thanks, Matt. Trustee Walker.
So Seeliger is gearing up for the annual festival that I know Trustee Cassiopo and I spent a lot of years attending and working at. So the 30th annual Pumpkin Patch is going to be taking place at Seeliger on the 12th. And they are going to have fun and games, of course, pumpkins, silent auction, and raffle tickets. So hopefully Carson families will take a few minutes and go celebrate with Seeliger Elementary School.
Thank you. Trustee Ramirez.
So from Eagle Valley Middle School, Dr. Conley reminds us that they're having the State of the School event tonight as we speak. Mr. Fielding and I were there just a few minutes ago, and we were pleased to see many families and learning about what programs the school is offering to their children and inviting them to get involved. I love that. Let's see, end of the cookie dough fundraiser is Tuesday, September 25th. If students beat their sales from last year, the 3 administrators will dress up as characters chosen by the students. So I'm curious to see what the students are going to choose. A new superstar teacher, Sarah Bennett, has brought back National Junior Honor Society to Eagle Valley Middle School. About 30 students applied and selected, and they are excited to observe all the great activities they will be engaged in during the year. Book fair is happening on September 30th through October 4th. Library is open before school and during lunch for the book fair. And I also serve on the Multilingual Learner Committee. And as Mr. Filling said, we are inviting all the families and students and district staff to join us for this amazing event on October 3rd. It's not very often that we get a chance to hear from an astronaut about their experience, so this is going to be super exciting, and it's going to be bilingual, English and Spanish. So teachers, please encourage your students and their families to attend. That concludes my report.
Okay, thank you. And Caitlin did a nice job of representing Pioneer, so I have nothing from Pioneer. But I did want to say earlier today, I had the opportunity to attend. It was I'm sure there's a better title for it, Dan, but I called it the Cell Phone Media Tour of the Carson High campus. And various media entities came down, took some videos, toured a couple classrooms, and then interviewed staff and students on this issue of cell phones and how has putting the cell phones in these pouches impacted them. You know, what are the pros and cons? And I'm delighted to report that the students, I thought, were real sincere in their feelings. Some said they thought it was a good idea. Some said, don't like it. And they explained why. And I thought they were very articulate. And it's just always interesting to hear from the students. You know, we come here, we don't get a lot of students other than our representatives, but to go around and listen to students on the campus talking about what concerns them. You know, one student said, I'm really not on social media all that much, so this doesn't impact me a whole lot, but I can understand, and one of the common threads were we've observed less fighting on the campus. So I guess students, it's, back in the day it was a big production to get a fight going. Now, it's a touch of a button and you can set up whatever you want. Other students were saying, it's a shame though that we're all getting punished for, some kids not following the rules. So again, it was interesting to get different perspectives. Some students were for it, some not so crazy about it, but most were pretty indifferent. And they said, it's fine, because all their friends are there. And the one thing they said was, we're not missing out on anything because all our friends are here and they're not using their phones. And as a result, the end of the day comes, they open up their pouch, they get on their phone, and there's not a lot of news going on in their world because nobody's been on the phones. So after school, I'm sure you all catch up and do all that. But anyway, it was interesting. I thought the media did a nice job of getting a good perspective of students, and the school did a nice job of bringing staff and students into the library and into the classroom. So I just wanted to thank Dan for organizing that, getting it set up for everybody, and I thought it was a great opportunity for everybody.
And I think the kids are learning what, for our generation, life was like. You had to actually talk to your friends after school to get caught up.
One of the students did say they're getting really good at kind of lipping what they want to say across the room. It's like, text me later, 3 o'clock. So kind of funny, you adapt. But anyway, that's all I had. We're going to move on to item 5, association reports. And again, you guys, thank you very much for giving your reports. Congratulations. So anyway, association reports. Hello there.
Good evening, President Casiopo, trustees, and Superintendent Fueling. For the record, my name is Carrie Finn, and I'm the president of the Carson Educational Support Association. Tonight, I want to emphasize a critical message. The 3 most important letters in the word respect are ESP. For those of you that don't know, ESP is the acronym for Education Support Professionals. The vital role that ESPs play, both inside and outside the classroom, is essential. They ensure that all students are safe, healthy, fed, and ready to learn. It is imperative that we do not overlook or undermine their contributions. Unfortunately, when the district chooses to dismiss CESA's concerns regarding noncompliance with established policies, it sends a troubling message about the respect afforded to our ESPs. Over the past year and a half, CESA has raised numerous issues, both through email and in person, with the superintendent and Human Resources Department. These concerns, primarily about the district's failure to adhere to existing policies, have not only persisted, but have worsened. Daily, I hear complaints from ESPs, which has eroded trust between the district and its dedicated staff. While CISA appreciates the district's decision to remove Policy 403.1 and Regulation 408 from tonight's agenda, we recognize that there is still significant work ahead. We look forward to being involved in future discussions regarding proposed changes that will affect our classified staff. It is crucial that we focus on retaining our ESPs. We are concerned that ignoring CESA's concerns will impede our efforts to keep the best professionals in our district. CESA stands ready to engage in negotiations, and we are committed to fostering fair and transparent policies for all ESPs within the Carson City School District. Thank you for hearing me out.
Do we have any other association reports? Okay, so we'll move on to item 6, which is public comment. Do we have any public comment tonight? Show of hands. Okay, so I don't usually read the whole paragraph, but I will summarize it. Basically, everybody gets 3 minutes. We ask that you don't repeat comments from the person before you. You know, we want to hear as much as we can. But when you come up, state your name for the record. We'll give you 3 minutes. And everything else is in the agenda. So why don't we get started with public comments? In-person public comment. So, sir, I saw. Either one, just press the button and make sure the base is green.
All right.
Yeah, Mike has
Are you the timer? Yeah. All right. Thank you. Good evening, trustees and administration. My name is Alan Gum, and I wanted to introduce myself. I am now the new UNISERV director for CESA. And just a little bit about myself. I've been involved in education for 35 years. I did 30 years in the classroom in Nevada, 31 years actually, and I've been involved in association activities throughout that entire time. I hope that that we will be able to have many very positive dialogues. Okay, I'm appreciative that the agenda items 9 and 10 were removed from the agenda tonight, and I'll tell you why. Here in Nevada, we usually think of bargaining as that thing that we do biannually, and then we're done. But there's lots of things that change during those 2 years, and it's reasonable to expect that we need to continue to come back and talk about things that need to change because circumstances change over those periods of time. And a lot of districts don't understand or fully embrace that. And it's called impact and implementation bargaining, okay? It's done nationally. It's not usually done in Nevada because we're so small. I mean, I walked into the superintendent's office in Douglas County for 25 years without an appointment. We'd sit down and hash things out, write up an MOU. That was I&I bargaining. And whenever there needs to be a change, that needs to occur. That's in the law. It's NRS 288-150. Okay, we have mandatory subjects of bargaining, and if for some reason the district needs to change something, we need to talk. And so I'm inviting that conversation to begin whenever an issue arises, okay? We are open to discussion. We want to reach solutions, and I think that these items being removed from tonight's agenda is a good first step, okay? We would like to engage administrators at all levels to resolve issues, okay? We want to follow due process. Those procedures are in place to protect not only the district, but the employees and the students. Most importantly, we want the best environment for our professional personnel to serve the students of the community. And we're only going to do that if we're on the same side and we're talking and coming to resolution on all things. Okay, so that's my invitation to all of you. I did give cards to Trustee Walt, and you can get one of my cards and reach me by email or phone, text at any time. Trustees, if you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. Same with administration.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alan.
Hi, good evening. My name is Lisa Partee. I'm a grandparent of a student at Eagle Valley Middle School. And I'm surprised you didn't mention this, Lupe. We all know, we read in the paper and we saw it on the news that there was a 13-year-old who threatened to shoot up Eagle Valley Middle School. It was handled. Parents weren't notified. Staff was not notified. You have an app called the Parent Square, and that was not utilized. I was just at the school for the state of the school. I called the principal this morning, still have not gotten a call back. I let him know. He says, well, I didn't find out about it until yesterday afternoon. I don't care. If he's traveling, have somebody else in charge. But that sheriff's department needed to and had been in charge with people at Eagle Valley somehow. But for them to not notify staff or parents, even if it was found out to be just a kid looking for attention, is unacceptable. Unacceptable. I don't know what the situation is. Let us make that decision. Let the kids' parents make that decision, should they go to school today or not. Do we know if there's another actor? I don't know, because we don't know anything about it. Because there might be privacy. I don't care. I don't need his identity. We need to know. This was unacceptable. And the vice principal just said Eagle Valley is one of the safest schools in the country. Unacceptable. Please do better.
Yes, please. If it's not green already. There you go.
No, it's not. Good evening, everyone. My name is Bev Singleton, and I am a district employee, been with the district for 40 years. I am also a grandparent to 4 children currently in the school district. And I have an issue among other parents and grandparents with the dress code for the middle schools. Right now, let me get this up here so I get it right. At the middle school at Eagle Valley, it says that all skirts and shorts must be knee length or have leggings underneath. Then further down, it says non-transparent leggings are required under all skirts and dresses. Leggings must be below the knee. I can tell you today an incident occurred where a young lady who was wearing a skirt that was basically maxi length, almost to her ankles, was sent home because she did not have on leggings, which would have been shorter than her dress. Now, is it more important to make sure these girls, who are the only people singled out by skirts and dresses, are wearing leggings, or is it more important to keep them in school? We need to decide, and I have looked at other districts. This is not the way their dress code is addressing leggings. So thank you for your time. I hope we consider changing the dress code. And I also would like to point out that this is required of the students, but not the staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any additional in-person public comment? Okay, seeing none. We did get one email public comment from Julie Spence. So I just wanted to make sure Julie and everybody knew that we did receive her comment. We're going to enter it into the record. So at this time, we're going to close public comment and move on to item 7. But thank you, everybody, for expressing your concerns. Item 7 is informational update on the Behavioral Learning and Social Skills Teaching BLAST program in the Carson City School District. And this item is for discussion only. Sorry, whenever you're ready.
Oh, okay. Good evening, President
I was
Cassiopo
reading my notes.
and trustees. Thank you so much for inviting us to come and share about our behavioral learning and social skills program. We are fortunate in this district to have the support of the district office and you all for our behavioral support. So with our pre-K, we have the pyramid model that is, we've discussed a little before about being taught through UNR. We have MTSS with lead Christy Perkins and, oh my goodness, why did I do this? Anyways, Stephanie Keating supports that. And then we have our DIAT, which is our district intervention assistance team. And there's a collage of community members and district staff that support it. And then that brings us to BLAST. And this is a partnership between Advanced Behavioral Solutions with Dr. Ken McAleese. He's the founder and owner of the company. We have Dr. Ainsley Luan, who is here that supports, and some other staff that we'll be talking about in a little bit. The Carson City School District and the Department of Education, we have a priority improvement grant that our Office of Inclusion supports. So this is a really collaborative program that supports our district, okay? So on this slide, you're gonna see there is a lot of people invested in this program. And it's divided up. So if you look at the administration, Andrew Feeling, superintendent, he sits on our bi-weekly committee to work out, the program and keep improving. Of course, myself, Dr. Christine Lennox. Sarah Dean, she is the lead for this program out of the department. It could not happen without Sarah. She is phenomenal. Her knowledge, her support for behavior. And the team, Shalice Cruikshank, our principal, is fantastic. She is at the table to problem solve every time we call and ask upon, and she asks lots of questions. And of course, Mark Rodina as well for our site admin, okay? Then our Mark Twain staff, the boots on the ground that are there every single day is Tara Sheck. She's our special education teacher. Jeremy Faulkner is our general ed teacher. And then Angelina Opreza. Thank you, Oropeza. I apologize. Emma Stagliano and Anna Cochran. Okay, so sorry. But that's the staff that is there every day, boots on the ground, and they're phenomenal. We could not do this without them, their willingness to grow and learn. Then our staff from Advanced Behavioral Solutions is, of course, Dr. Luan, Dr. McAleese Teal, McAllister, Caitlin Peel, Marie Wagner, and Isaiah Rogers. So as you see, there's a lot of staff that's involved. Now, admin and our BCBAs, they're not there all the time. We're there supporting throughout, whatever they need, but the Mark Twain staffs are really the ones who are implementing and doing a great job. So with this presentation, Dr. Luan is going to walk us through the program and the slides, and then we'll have time for questions at the end.
Thank you so much, Dr. Luan. It's a pleasure to be sitting in front of the board. Thanks for your time. I know it's precious. We have a lot of BLAST staff in the back, so what? We run hallways together. We got bonded. Thank you for the community members that are here. Your civic participation matters. I'm born and raised in Northern Nevada. These are our kids. These are our communities, and it's important to pay attention. So I appreciate the civic participation. It should be no surprise to anybody in this room that the mental health and behavioral needs of students across our country have changed and continue to change and evolve. And that has left districts, again, nationwide, set to task to create or redesign systems that provide comprehensive and effective support for students that need it the most. I believe it is wise of this board and this district to have continued to invest in the integrated MTSS framework or the multi-tiered systems of support. Having a robust MTSS system really catches and supports the large majority of students in any school district where it's functioning properly. But a small percentage of students will likely need more support than is just typically available in most school districts and most school buildings. We were pleasantly not surprised to have incredible partners when we all got together to kind of solve the Carson City School District's need in the spring of 2023. We have not had a hard time finding courageous leaders in this district. So Mr. Fueling, Dr. Lennox, Sarah Santos, Shalise Crookshanks, Sarah Dean Santos, Mark Rodina. And we really got busy just reading all of the research and really picking apart our district's strengths to figure out how it is we could meet the changing needs of our students here in this district, right? Last year was our pilot or test year. So 2023, 2024 took and brought a lot of lumps, both figuratively and literally, but we remained flexible as we rolled out, really a new way of interacting with students with behavioral needs in our district. So I'm really excited to share that with you today. A very, very simplified update to a very complex issue and system. So what is BLAST? So BLAST partners expert behavior analysts or behavior psychologists with committed teachers and staff to implement well-researched interventions, high-quality interventions. And these are delivered primarily in the general education environment. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But currently this year, we're serving students kindergarten to 5th grade. Our pilot year last year, it was kindergarten to 2nd because we really wanted to understand the system that we were piloting, but we have opened that up to 5th grade at this point. The primary core foundation of what it is that we're doing, we've come to kind of refer to as supported inclusion. And I do want to take a minute just to explain what we mean by this. The research body is extremely clear that if we throw high-need behavioral kids into general education without the proper services and supports, we get negative student outcomes. I mean, it's the metaphorical equivalent of throwing a student in the deep end and then blaming them for not being able to swim, right? The alternative then, which operates on the same continuum but on the opposite end, is something that we would call self-contained placements or exclusionary placements. These placements are characterized by removing students from their home schools, but also their general education classrooms, and serving and intervening with these students in classrooms or wings or buildings that are kind of separated from their general education teachers and peers. One thing that may surprise you, it certainly surprised me given that a self-contained model is the predominant model in this country, is that we actually don't see improved student outcomes by removing students from their general education settings. We don't see better academic improvement. We don't see behavioral improvement. We actually see behavior worsen under some circumstances because of the lack of appropriate peer models and also imitation of each other's challenging behavior. So what we really wanted to do was cross our eyes and follow the research and find a really nice, pretty place in the middle that allowed kids to benefit from the enriched social and academic opportunities available in our general education settings, but supporting them in ways that they can grow while remaining around their peers and their teachers. So, man, we did a lot of reading. Okay, but I'm a nerd, I loved it. So it's interesting when you turn to the research about what works. We know a lot about what doesn't work. What works is a little bit harder to track down. To use a car metaphor, which is ironic because I know nothing about cars, it's like we knew a lot about the carburetor and the suspension system and that windshield wipers mattered, but we weren't quite sure how to build a whole car that drives well and fast and safely. It's very much like this. We were able to identify some kernels or some components or some things that seemed to be really critically important, but there was no framework or curriculum or package we could buy that could teach us how to do this in our district. And so that was what that pilot year was for last year. But certainly there are some really critical things, and they're listed here. The first and most primary of them being that we're not self-containing these kids. This is not a self-contained program. We have an entry and exit criteria that aligns with the multi-tiered systems of support. We actually meet with them every 2 weeks, along with Mr. Fueling and our entire BLAST team. It has been critical to align our systems with their system. We're very appreciative for them. Changing a student's placement or increasing services and support should not be taken lightly, and we treat it with the seriousness that it deserves. We really want to make sure that we have truly exhausted every resource before a student is placed in the BLAST program. We implement truly individualized evidence-based programming based on research in both behavior analysis and education, behavior psychology. When I say truly individualized, I mean truly individualized. I mean, it's hard to really characterize that except just believe me. No two kids are getting the same thing every day. No two kids' services look the same because we truly have the time and truly the privilege of viewing each student as an individual and taking their needs into account. We use function-based interventions. If you've heard of PBIS, all of that is out of the behavior psychology literature. A really casual way to talk about what a function-based intervention is that we consider the motivations of the student. So why are they doing what they do? And then very deliberately and thoughtfully constructing new and more appropriate repertoires to meet that same need. So replacing the challenging behavior with something, because behavior doesn't occur in a vacuum. Deliberate, thoughtful, and respectful communication and collaboration. This is a public-private partnership, right? We use different jargon. We've come together beautifully, but we needed time to do that. In order to truly individualize service, you've got to be able to talk to each other, review data, talk about what's working and what's not working. We need to be very sensitively in tune with what it is our students are doing and what it is that we're doing that's working or needs to be fixed and changed. Progress monitoring. We're behavior scientists. We have a love affair with data. Data is not our problem. We've got it in spades. But progress monitoring, very careful data collection is how we know what we're doing is working, when something needs to be changed. And so we track virtually every behavior targeted for change. A focus on teacher and staff training and mentorship. We rely on our special education teacher, Tara Scheck, and our general education teacher, Jeremy Falconer, to not only run the protocols, but to be mentors for other teachers who are learning how to do this for the very first time too. Research suggests that teachers are really likely to take feedback from teachers who are mentors to them. So we take that really serious and we honor that. And this is last, and it feels like it should have been first, and it's the soft, squishy underbelly, but we have a caring and compassionate culture for some kids that have some challenges. We love our kids. It is a culture of joy. So that's the underbelly. But we got to come at kids with compassion. We have to show them compassion first before we expect them to show compassion as a part of their school community. Where is it? It's at Mark Twain, baby. So we also serve, though, students from Bordewick, Bray, Sealiger, Fremont, and then also Mark Twain. Where is the BLAST program? Where is it housed? Some of you have actually come to see it, which is really cool. It's an open door. I mean, Shalice, I hope so. But come on in and see it, right? But bring your running shoes, because these kids are in general education classrooms. There's some de-escalation rooms. There are some rooms where we provide treatment or intervention, but these kids are in their classrooms with their peers and their teachers. It's really important to understand, again, this is not a self-contained program, which leads me, I guess, to a genuine statement of gratitude to the general education teachers who we've asked to do some pretty non-traditional things in serving our students, and they have risen to that challenge. So a huge thank you to them if anybody is streaming on the web somewhere. Who are we serving? We did not provide fine-grained demographic data to just protect the anonymity of the students who are receiving services, particularly in such a public forum. But we are serving students, even though we're K through 5, first, second, and third, with the majority of students placed in the second grade. And just some outcomes. Again, I'm speaking generally to protect your time, but we do collect data on a lot of targets, both decelerative, so the frequency, intensity, and duration of the challenging behaviors, or the behaviors we'd like to see less of in our buildings, but also the acelerative targets, because it's not about getting behavior to go away. It's about replacing it with pro-social, habilitative, academic, and social responding, right? And so how do we know that we've gotten some good outcomes? Well, we've got a lot of data to tell us that we do. And so I'm really excited to share on behalf of everybody in our program and everyone that's contributed to it, including this board, that every student that was enrolled in our BLAST program last year improved, made progress towards their social, emotional, and behavioral goals. That is outstanding. Some students, this last data point, were planning to graduate or exit after a year of service. And any intervention, any service or support, I mean, we always are thinking about how we going to get out of the hamster wheel of this, right? So we measure our success not necessarily in how many students come to us or how many students we serve, but how many students we graduate onto the next phase of their educational lives. So
when you exit them, is there monitoring and support that they get in that transition?
So you can kind of imagine, and it's interesting because actually we just started writing some policy. You know, last year was about making it go. This year is about what does it look like to be successful? And gosh, you run the victory lap and then you say, how do we get kids back to their, their home schools or their, without these services and supports, or stay at Mark Twain without the services and supports. And so we actually did a rough draft of some policy that we reviewed at our board meeting about the criteria for exit. But I guess in a very general sense, you can imagine all of these students kind of crawled up the pyramid, and exit looks like crawling back down. So it's not as though they go back to their schools or their classrooms and they don't receive any support. I mean, certainly those teachers are still going to need training. The staff is going to need training. They would go back to what we would consider our traditional consultative model, where we are guiding the implementation of a behavior intervention plan, but that it doesn't take the oversight and the expertise of the BLAST staff in order for that student to remain successful or for behavioral maintenance to occur. Yeah, it's a great question. So now I'm going to turn it over to our principal perspective, because again, we're trying to kind of build an airplane in the air, right? But we're doing this in Ms. Cruikshank's and Mark Ordina's in their building with their teachers, their custodial staff, their office staff. I mean, everyone is trained and is responding, and it's important to get the perspective of the CEO of the building.
Thank you for that. I too echo all of the thanks that we have been able to launch this program and to be able to come together as a collaborative body to make this happen. I know Ainsley touched on it, but this program very much impacts our general ed teachers and on the culture of our entire school. And I will tell you, it's been a very positive impact. We have really taken to the MTSS model. We've done some extra training. We've been to some conferences. We've had extra people into the building to provide training for us. And Ainsley has a very fancy word for this called in vivo training. And I just love it, but it's like on the ground. So when the child is having any kind of dysregulation, whether it's in the gen ed room, in the hallway, in the lunchroom, out at recess, it's like, I need assistance, and we're there and we can help. And so our staff has really been able to advance our skills because we have been able to have this in vivo training on the spot. And so I think that's really, really had a positive impact on our school because we have a lot more tools to work with these kids. It would never be successful without the open-mindedness, the resiliency, the commitment to learning of our gen ed teachers. And I really mean that. I came into elementary 3 years ago, and I have been overwhelmed by the amount of care and compassion that these teachers have, and the amount of openness that they have to letting our team come into their classroom and coach them on the spot, or coach them after school when we've had a hard day, or coach them at 9 o'clock at night when it's still on their mind of what has happened. And so I just really want to stress that this has been so positive for us. It's a journey and it's been hard, but we have benefited, and our school has benefited, and our students have benefited, and our parents have benefited. When I go out after school and I get a hug regularly from these parents who may have traditionally been met with a lot of reporting on negative behaviors during a school day, that to me is a feeling of success from the parent perspective. And I get the same from the kids. We all just love these kids, and that's our whole school, from the front office all the way through every person in that building, down to our custodial staff that cleans up the spilled milk, literally. When we have some dysregulation or they kick the entire garbage can over. But I just can't tell you how positive it's been for all of us. And I just thank my team over and over and over again for allowing us to do all of this pilot work. We have seen our students grow. And most importantly, I think our staff has really embraced the idea that all students can learn, regardless of what they're bringing to the table. We have found a way to make that possible. And I'm really excited about this work. I'm really grateful. I'm grateful for our staff, for our team, our school, and I'm grateful for this opportunity that we have had. But I just wanted to take a moment and share from a building perspective, leading a group of staff members. It's challenging work. It's a lot of work, but it's working. And we are getting the growth, and we're getting the program, the positivity from the program. So I thank you. I thank you for this opportunity to be here. So that's my perspective from the building. So Dr. Zawan, if you have anything else, or
That's all she wrote, unless you guys have any questions.
Yeah, board, any questions, Rich?
Yeah, I do. Thank you for the presentation, number one. And I'm just curious if there's any research, or how are we going to determine if the program is successful for these kids? How long are they going to be tracked, in other words? Are they being tracked through high school to see if their behavior continues on a positive path?
It's such a fabulous question. And in fact, one of the difficulties of trying to figure out how to put this system together is that there are methodological problems with the research base, and that students are not tracked for very long. So it's somebody's dissertation, they get the PhD, and they don't go back 5 years and measure. And so, one of the things that we have discussed now that we've got a system that we can replicate some parts of it, right? Last year was really building. How are we going to try to use this to inform and help other districts? How can we not manualize it, because it has to be individualized, but write down the things that really seem to be critically important for successful working here? Following up, perhaps publishing, or we're giving a talk actually to the NASB conference in December, so sharing some of this. I'd like to have some group level analyses of the data, but yeah, it is important to follow up. It absolutely is, and that's a critical problem with the literature base writ large. So.
Trustee Varner, if I could just add to that, I think coming from our district and having our kids, we know that the IEP process tracks and follows our kids. And we add to every IEP, we add a present level, but we keep some of the historical things in that IEP that give new teams the ability to understand where the student may have come from and where they're going. And so I think we're going to see lingering effects of this and be able to have those noticings as these kids get older and as we work with more kids and bring them into the program. So I think individually we might be able to see that. We're a small district, and so I'm excited to follow these kids in that realm. But that was just something that stood out to me in answer to your question.
Yes, thank you. It's quite an investment in money to do this program.
Yeah.
And it would be nice to see the progress of these children or kids, to make sure that it is making a positive impact on not only them, but the other students in the schools.
I think too, an important point isn't that these students are going to leave the BLAST program or graduate from the BLAST program and no longer need any supports or accommodations, right? But it's that then they crawl back down that MTSS pyramid and they're receiving tier 2 supports that other children who also need support. So, it's not as though, it's fixed. It's that we've really got it dialed, we've got them stabilized, and then sharing those strategies with school teams who can do that at a much less financial cost, because it's an investment in kids for sure, no doubt about it.
And I think the thing is that it takes time.
It does, yeah.
These are behaviors that kids learn throughout their whole early childhood before we ever even know them. And so I was just talking with some of my kindergarten teachers today about this, because it's a lot of work and they're tired and they're doing the work that everybody the rest of the time is going to benefit from.
Yeah.
And talking to those parents, kindergarten parent, you tell them, we're probably going to have this conversation several times. And probably about second grade, we're going to start to get it together. And that's just part of growing up for some of these kids. And so programs like this are you're so fortunate to have it, because these are relevant issues in every school district, in every school. And so it's preparing kids to be academically successful, because if a child is so dysregulated that they can't attend learning, they're never going to learn. And
Absolutely.
so this is not just that longitudinal study, because we definitely want that data, but we have to also know, when you see those kids in kindergarten that the principal spends all day chasing around the parking lot or the playground, and then in sixth grade they're sitting there and writing a paragraph, it's like, that's a victory.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that we have to, there's academic success, but then there's also behavioral success that these kids are going to need to attend to life.
Yeah.
So it's kind of both.
These are our community members. They're our
Yeah.
community members now in our schools, and they will be our community members. And so it's important to honor what they need as early as possible, because the longer a behavior's practiced, the longer it takes to change.
Matt?
Is there a behavioral component? Yes, there is. Is there a
Never heard of it.
parental component to this? Maybe where they're involved?
So
being
great
coached,
question.
mentored?
Yes, it's a great question. So we have done some parent training with some of our families, some parenting, some home visits, some home coaching. It was interesting. Some of our parents have been more resistant to it than others. I think traditionally in schools, we don't go into the homes, even though as behavior analysts, we're used to doing parenting instruction all the time. I did that for years as my only job, right? And so that's kind of something that we continue to work towards. We have great relationships with our families, but I don't think it's particularly standard for a teacher to come to your home. And so we're dealing with some of that. But yeah, I mean, the more consistent all of this child's environments are, the easier behavior changes. Yeah. We've done some, which has been really, really good.
No, I think we're on a good track with this, and I appreciate all the work that everybody's doing. The one question I hear, and it's not just with this, I've been on the board for 12 years, and it's the same thing, just the amount of workload on these classroom teachers
Yeah.
and what they have to do. And I'm wondering, two parts to this question. One, what's the path to get to the BLAST program? Because I'm assuming initially you have a student that has some behavioral issues, has some emotional needs, they're causing some level of disruption, and the teacher's trying to deal with this. They talk to their administrator, they try to formulate a plan, but a lot goes on in the classroom, and there's probably, like you mentioned, data collection and all that. What's the process to get to the BLAST program?
Yeah, so we talked earlier about the supports that we have. So we have the pre-K pyramid model. Sorry. Anyways, so we have that for our younger folks, MTS diet. So it might start with a child really struggling, and the teachers may be being coached by MTSS or pyramid. They're in there working with them, that type of thing. We're looking at the data on a regular basis. Are we making progress? Those type of things. Ainsley's team and Ken's team, they go out to all the schools. So we'll pull them in if we needed. So it's really individualized for the child. Then if they continue to struggle, the next step would be to come to the DIAT and have those expertise there, start looking and working with the work that's already been done. And then after we've exhausted all resources and we're not anywhere, we would review to see if we need more information or if we're going to recommend to go to BLAST. So it's not like a checkbox type thing. It's so individualized for every child. But that's the process, to get in there early, start working with those teachers, helping them work shoulder to shoulder. So like Teal works with our younger students, and she's in there working with the teachers, showing them how to implement these recommendations. And the nice thing about these behaviors that we have, they're not at the back just collecting data. They are sitting right next to you. I think it was Ainsley who said someone thought she was a parapro because she is in there in the middle of it.
The best parapro they had hired in a while. So I felt like that was a real honor.
Yeah.
And I mean that because they
but you
do a
would
lot of
see
hard
that.
work.
And so that's the beauty of what we're doing. It's not here, do this. They are walking with them. The staff training is in this program that, they've gone out and did multiple, like Shalisa schools had a lot of training. I know Fremont has utilized them. I think Seeliger, they have those options to go and work with the staff, and we talked about that again today on what that looks like, so.
Sorry, can I just finish one thought, Mike? The other part of that question was, it's that balance, and you had mentioned that just by removing a student from, say, their sorry, I'll get the wording wrong, but removing it from their traditional classroom doesn't show that student's now making academic improvements. But I start wondering, what's that balance? By keeping them in the classroom too long, there could be 23 other students that aren't getting good academic achievement because there's so many distractions
So-
going on. How do you balance that?
So IDEA tells us we have to work in the least restrictive environment. So that's federal. So we start there and we work to see, can we make any progress there? They're entitled to go to school in their home school. So when we say this isn't lightly, we have exhausted every resource. And those, like elevated rights for students who have IEPs or whatnot. So we always start with that and just work really closely. Consideration to dangerous situations, student safety, all those things are always involved. But it really starts with our federal obligation, state obligation of least restrictive environment in their home school and how we can support them.
Sure. And I appreciate that. And that's why I sent you an email and said,
No.
like as
Yep.
trustees, what, if anything, can we do through policy or whatever? I mean, obviously, if it's a federal mandate or something, or even from the state, there's not a lot we can do.
Well, we're
but
happy-
we can be involved in the conversation because when I think about the student who's having these challenges, their mental health, I can't help but think about the mental health of the other students and even the teacher and the administrators. I mean, some of what these folks have to deal with.
And,
can be
I
challenging.
think as a director, that's why I'm so grateful to our superintendent, the board, the staff, that there's nothing like this out there. Like we've looked and working shoulder to shoulder with them and Shalisa's team, it's hard work, yes, right? And we're filling a lot of holes. I truly believe we're on the right track with supporting our students, our staff, our families. And we'll keep doing that, and look at every situation on an individual student basis. So, yeah.
And actually, that's exactly what I was going to comment on because of the fact that, for so long, it used to be that these kids were placed in a program away from other kids. And I used to have a program like that at my school, and Ken spent a lot of time in there working with kids, and then we would try to reintegrate them without the support. And so I think that the fact, because we're not removing them and placing them someplace where they're not working with peers, because at the end of the day, these are children. They want friends. They want to have fun. And they have to learn how to do it effectively. And it is hard on the principals, on the teachers, and the special ed personnel. And we spend a lot of time with it, but the answer isn't always to just put them someplace in an isolated spot. We have to teach them to be productive members of society. And, there are those ones that you look at the safety, and there are sometimes you have to have some things in place, but those really should be the exception rather than the rule. So I like that the way this is done is they're incorporated into the school community and, in a dignified way with support, and you guys help them be successful.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for your presentation. So at first, when I saw this, I thought, oh, here we go with another program. Another program that we're adding into the school system. And I thank you for answering the questions, and same with you, Mr. Feeling, as well, the questions that I had. But as you were presenting this, it brought up a situation 27 years ago as I was a teacher. I had one of these students I didn't actually have her. I had her when she was in the 6th grade, but come 8th grade, she became very disruptive in the classroom, physically, verbally, ridiculing teachers, students, all of that. And there was only one place where she felt that she could go and she felt safe to go, and it was my classroom. So here I am trying to teach PE at Eagle Valley Middle School, and every morning I got this student sent to the gym outside, wherever I was at that point. I had no training. It was just something that, we got along. I don't know why at that point as well. But I look at this and I think this is the training 27 years ago that probably would have been extremely effective for the general ed teachers, for all of them, for the student herself, her parents as well. Her mother was a single mother and tried very hard. happy to report that we still are in contact, and she is extremely successful, and, you know, has a family of her own and does really, really well. But I look at that as I'm looking, you know, researching this, and I researched, you know, your business, all of this, the whole model. And, you know, and I thank you for this, because this is something that, you know, is very beneficial. I hope at one point that it can go from Mark, you know, not just Mark Twain, but overall as well, you know, throughout all of the elementary schools and the middle schools, because it is a tool that I think teachers and students could benefit from as well. So I, you know, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Any other questions on the board? Rich?
Just for clarification, I guess, you said you had students from Boardwalk and other schools. How does that work? I mean, are they removed from their school and transported to Mark Twain? And how long is that for? Is that for the whole school year, or how does, I guess I'm confused on that.
No problem. Thank you. I'd be happy to clarify that. So if a student is recommended or placed in the program to be part of this, we go ahead and redo their transportation to bus them to Mark Twain, and I would actually approve a variance for them. At that time, if there's any siblings that would also want to come, I would approve the variance for the siblings as well. It's important to keep those family units together if that's what the parents decided. I've got some families that are split. They need a little distance between the siblings because sometimes they just feel that that's better, and then that's okay with me as well. So if they do receive that placement, we arrange the buses, we do the variance. My intent would be, you know, to evaluate each case as they exit, if they would like to return to their home school or they would like to stay. The elementary principals work extremely well together in sharing and providing the best situation possible for students. So that's a little bit about how that works. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thanks for the clarification. I was confused on that. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't see any other questions. Thank you very much.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
So we'll move on to item 8, presentation and possible action to adopt the CCSD Restorative Discipline Plan for the 24-25 school year as required by NRS 392-4644. This is for possible action, and we have Christine Perkins presenting. Welcome.
Good evening, Christy Perkins for the record. So tonight, we will be looking at our Carson City School District Restorative Discipline Plan for the 24-25 school year, as required, of course, by NRS 392. This annual review is to provide the progressive discipline of pupils and on-site review of disciplinary decisions per NRS. And state law dictates that the plan must, of course, include the collaboration and communication from the site level teams, including the school administrators, teachers, paraprofessionals, the district office, and that it is aligned with our policies and procedures. So we did make some significant changes to the plan this year, so it is aligned to 525 regulation. And I've kind of just wanted to highlight those because it is a very extensive plan. It's a long document and it is very comprehensive. Some of the bigger changes, the formatting is one of the main changes that we made, so it's more of a living document for our administrative teams. This really outlines the menu of options that they can engage in when a student is demonstrating inappropriate behaviors or those unwanted behaviors. And I'm actually happy to follow the presentation that just went because this plan is really based in restorative practices, that as a district, we will engage with a process where we are here to support and surround the students and the families in the best way possible to ensure that they are successful in the classroom, both and academically, socially, emotionally. And this process really is through our MTSS teams at our sites, that there sometimes are behaviors in isolation, a one-time event that might be significant, but often that is not the case. Often it is multiple behaviors in different areas with different teachers, with different situations at different grade levels. And so this plan is really comprehensive to include our youngest learners all the way to our seniors. Those students who are in general education or special education need to be incorporated into this plan. So some of the changes we made that are kind of minor, formatting, we did kind of combine some of our attendance and truancy. They were separated in previous plans, and we thought those should be more aligned with consultation with our district lawyer team and our administrative team. Those seem to be more aligned in that manner. So you'll see those changes there. We have distinguished sales versus distribution with illegal substances. That there's been a change in the law of those items because of the legal classification of those items. For example, we've seen an uptick in maybe vapes at school sites, which is much different than a controlled substance of prescription pills. So there is some change in the verbiage there if a student has 100 pills on them ready to sell them, or if a student has 2 or 3 vapes, because it's different in the way that the law deals with those type of situations. So there's some changes there you'll see in the document. Also, the subcategories have all been moved under to bullying. A big change here in the law is that, and the training we're doing with our admin teams, is really when any behavior comes to your office, your first glance should be through the lens of bullying. Now, that is new. That was not always the case. There's some confusion with, is this a mutual conflict? Because we all know that exists in schools, right? There are peer conflicts a lot. And not everything is bullying. That is not the intention of this law. But the intention of the change here is to ensure that you can rule out bullying and then proceed with the appropriate discipline. So we are working with our site administrators, our deans, and our vice principals who mainly do most of the discipline in our school sites as to what should you look for first to make your professional judgment, is this bullying? And if it is, there's a certain way that the law dictates of how you have to proceed. If it is bullying, you have to notify the victim, you have to notify the parents, there's formal documentation. So there is some changes in this document with bullying. Rather than separating them all out, it all kind of is under one umbrella. And then you would then go through the process to ensure that you've taken all the steps to ensure the bullying stops, the victim is protected, and then everyone's rights, are taken seriously. A new addition is the discrimination based on race. That was a change in the law, and that is now a separate category under bullying, that if it is specifically determined that it was based on race, that you have to proceed in a different manner. So you'll see some changes there. Also, some just more formatting changes when you look at the X's and the O's. So this is, as I said, a guide for our administrators, the ones that are non-negotiable. We have 7 that if a student engages in this specific, very outrageous behavior, it is recommended for an expulsion or a long-term suspension, and that, of course, goes through a formal process. But there are other times when it is very situational. It might be a very young child. It might be a student who's engaged in such a specialized program such as BLAST, where you might have to look at that in a different manner. The student might have different protections because they're on an IEP. So this guide here where we have the X's and O's shows you what you may do, and then there's some situations when you must do. And so we did clean up some of that narrative there in the X's and O's just so it is more clear for our administrators. We're not saying every child who engages, let's say, in a pure conflict, you throw the football, your 2 friends, you didn't catch the football, you guys get in a fist fight. No one is saying both those students have to be automatically suspended for 5 days. No, you may suspend the student if it's needed to get a plan together, but you don't have to do that. You might do a peer mediation. You might have them take a break from recess for a few days. And that is up to your professional judgment based on the situation, of course. And as we all know, there's going to be a variety of situations in our schools, and our administrative team works very hard to make sure they are doing what is most fair and safe for the school. Another change that you'll see in this document, and this is a change in the law, is after 3 days, if a child is suspended for 3 days, it is the district's obligation that we provide a plan, a restorative plan for that student so they can safely re-enter the school. That plan involves a team. It is not done in isolation in an administrator's office and then handed out. The plan really is, how are we going to wrap this student around in services? How are we going to support the family? The family is a part of creating that plan. And what are the adult behaviors going to be? And traditionally, as everyone in this room knows, I was a school administrator for a long time, and we used to what was called a contract. You will do this, you will do that, you will do this, and if you don't do that, you're out. And it was really directed at how we were going to deal with students. The restorative plan and the big shift I think we've made in educational settings is this is more a plan of support. How are we going to just get rid of those unwanted behaviors, and how are we going to increase the pro-social behaviors? And that plan takes a lot of people. Maybe your social worker, your counselor, your favorite teacher, your coach, maybe the dean of students is going to meet you at the bus every morning. And so now when a school does suspend a student, we're recommending that it's the fewest days possible that you need as a school site to create that plan. And sometimes you do need 3 days. You might need more. You might need up to 10 days. And there's ones that are going to be more extensive, of course. And that third day, the school must also provide instruction for that student so they do not continue to fall behind and they're out, and then when they do come back, there's no chance for them to ever re-engage in the school system. So there's some changes to that language in this document. Those are, I would say, the most significant changes that we made. I will go back to what the BLAST team said. Our DIAT team, as I've presented on before here, our district intervention assistance team is up and running. It is very strong this year. We do meet every Friday, and it is really that lens of support for our sites. If a site is struggling with creating that plan, they need help, they can just put in a DIAT referral. We'll send a coach to the site. We'll help them write the plan. We will call and meet a parent and make sure they're involved in that plan. And we also run any student who we're even considering for BLAST, we run them through the DIAT process first. Or if we're considering a behavior hearing, if it is one of those large 7 events, and we're thinking, okay, this might be a behavior hearing, this student has violated one of these, we run it through that team first to say, did we do everything as a district we know how to do? Did we make sure the student was supported, their rights were not violated, and that we are supporting our staff, our students, and our school sites? So I think that kind of captures the most significant changes in the document, and I will take any questions at this time.
Okay, so yeah, I did, I went through and, saw where all the X's and O's have changed. And I see, that all of, every one of these, the plan of action is required. So with that, what is the time, on average, does it take an administrator or a counselor to do this for the students now that it is required for all of these behavioral or truancies problems? Because my concern is, the action plan is taking a lot of time to write, whether it be, and, on average, how, and then to follow up with it in stuff, because we're hearing, at least I'm hearing, all the reporting that it is taking from teachers and counselors and administrators is getting to be a lot.
I appreciate the question.
After hours.
Yes, I hear what you're saying. This is time. It does take time, and it is time sensitive for sure in these situations. I would say we are getting better at writing the plans, and I think because we are beefing up our MTSS system, our idea is ideally if we have a really strong tier 1 and tier 2 system, these plans, you're not going to have to write as many of them, right? Because you're reducing that unwanted behavior. But at the current, I would say it is taking, I don't know exact timeline, half hour, an hour, or more for sure, because it is, you have to get a team together. And that's difficult with our schedules and all of our responsibilities. But we are really increasing our training of our staff of how can we better utilize some of the roles in our school social worker. What role could they play in this plan? Maybe they're going to take a piece of that away from the administrator. What can we do to include, a student who's really motivated by a sports team? How can we include that in the plan? So we have, formatting wise, we have created some fillable forms to assist reduce the amount of time this is taking. We also have created a space to store those plans, because there are parts and pieces, even though they are individualized, that you are going to reuse for students that have demonstrated similar behaviors. Let's say fighting might be one where usually there's similar situations that you can apply certain behavioral interventions to those situations. So we are creating that bank for our administrators to help assist in writing the plans. And we also, as I said, through the DIAT process and my MTSS coordinator, Stephanie Keating, if you are struggling with the writing that, she will come to you and assist. She has significant training in behavior and will come help you with the plan, because it is time consuming and you have a lot of students you're worried about. Of course, we do typically see more behaviors at our secondary level, and they do have a pretty extensive administrative team. They have a bit, they're not a singleton principal or just a principal, vice principal. They usually have quite a team. And so they're sharing the load with that, because it is time consuming. And honestly, that's why we're also saying if you only need a day, the child needs a day, a break, or there's another way that you don't have to remove the child and re-enter, that also helps with not having to write a plan for every single kid, because that's not possible. That's not physically possible with an enormous school. So we really need to make sure we're being preventative, and then we have time to introduce an individualized plan for those children who need it.
So say that if they don't remove them and they don't write the plan, how is that tracked to see if it's not a habitual
So the only way
behavior
you would get
problem?
to a habitual behavior problem is 5 significant suspensions, a significant suspension is 3 days or more. So if you're going on the track of, we think this is going to lead to a habitual, then yes, that's going to be a plan. Now, you're not writing a new plan every single time. You're going to modify the plan. So if you had a 3-day suspension, we would come together, write the plan. Let's say 2 weeks later, you had another suspension. We would modify the plan and say, well, this is not working. We wouldn't start fresh every time. And then if we're getting to 5 3-day suspensions, then we would be looking at a behavior hearing with a possible change in placement or a different opportunity for that student.
Christine, how did we get to 5 suspensions, let's say? I mean, I just think, in a school year, and most kids probably may never have a suspension in their whole school career.
Correct.
Others might have 1 or 2. We're talking about 5
And that
in a
would
short period, in a year, right?
In a year. And that would just be if we're looking at those top 7 for the habitual. That would be a student that has significant behavior issues, I would agree. Old time, we used to have progressive where, you might do a 3-day suspension, a 5-day suspension, a 7-day suspension, a 10-day suspension, now you're out. And that's really changed over the last several years. That is not best. We've shown students who are suspended have a higher opportunity to drop out of school, be retained, become credit deficient, and not graduate. So research has shown that just suspending more suspensions is not really the answer to changing or reducing the unwanted behavior. But if you're looking at habitual, it is 5 suspensions of 3 or more days.
And that's where I was going with that, is at some point you're getting 5, even 3, 4 suspensions in a school year. Obviously, it's not making an impact.
Correct.
And I'm just wondering, where the magic number of 5 came from. Why not and I'm just speaking out of ignorance. Why not at 3 go, okay, we gotta, we've approached each one, and now we gotta look at something different.
Yeah, so the very first suspension of 3 days or more, you have to engage in the plan. So you don't wait till the 5. So if a student had, let's say, a 4 or 5 day suspension, during that time they were suspended is when you would gather the team and create the plan, and then you would bring the student back, engage in the plan, collect data on the plan if it's working or not, make tweaks. You would be monitoring that. If they earned a second suspension, we would need to make some great modifications to the plan. And there's other things we can do during that time. We don't have to just sit and wait for the 5. We have some opportunities in our district to provide additional maybe an in-school suspension rather than out-of-school suspension, a change in schedule. We even have, last year was our first year with an opportunity school, a very small environment that sometimes is a change. We have a different campus with Pioneer Campus. That change might help, reduce some of those unwanted behaviors. So we don't just wait until it's too late. We really are intervening much earlier than we have in previous years. On that first suspension, if it's 3 or more days, you are required by law to write a plan.
I think that, and a simple answer is a lot of this is also law. And so, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
And I think that with this presentation and the questions, which are so eye-opening for so many people, but this is why Superintendent Fueling and his colleagues across the state are really advocating the State Board of Education, the legislature, because there are so many reporting requirements that as an administrator, as a district level administrator, you could spend all day doing paperwork and never interact with students and still not get it all done. And so it's almost insane the amount of paperwork that's required for not just discipline, but every aspect of school operations. And so I think that there's been real robust discussions about ways to streamline those processes. And as a board, when those discussions come up, we need to be able to advocate on behalf of the district and our administrators and, hopefully find some processes that are going to alleviate some of this for the schools, because the focus should be on changing behaviors and helping kids and educating kids and not doing paperwork.
Absolutely. I appreciate you bringing that forward. I think the work we are doing in our district around MTSS, as I said earlier, will ideally reduce the number of students who are engaging in unwanted behaviors. And that is our end goal, to support those sites so they have the tools they need to run a successful school. And you can't do that if you're spending all day, documenting. So we are trying to modify that at all costs. Last year, we did a lot of work around separating minor behavior versus major behavior and giving the teachers back some of that power of, you can take care of that in the class. You don't need to go fill out a whole referral and send it down, and the kid's sitting down in the office for 2 hours waiting for an administrator who might be busy doing a bullying investigation or something more serious. So we've done some work around that. And we have done some work around restorative practices in your classroom, de-escalating unwanted behavior. We even, this year was the first year we have trained our bus drivers for how do they deal with problem behavior. They are the first to see the students and the last. And they hadn't had much training around that at all, and they were asking for it. And we were able to at least start that conversation. So we're hoping if, the student gets on the bus and has a great start to their day, maybe it will help and trickle down to the school sites and the administrators. So we are putting in the work, and we hear what you're saying, and we're trying to help our administrative team by having this DIAT team too, where they don't feel all alone and they're not writing these reports in isolation. They can bring it forward. They can say, I have to write 3 letters that I have to get out by the end of day. Can someone help me here? And I think we have created that open dialogue to know that we are a team and we're here to support all of our sites and our administrators, our teachers, and our students and meet them where they're at.
So I was looking at a few of these too, and it says in-school suspension. So does each school site have an in-school suspension classroom designated spot? Because if they're in-school suspended for bringing a dangerous weapon, because that's required, is in-school suspension. And if they don't have an in-school suspension designated spot, where do they go?
So at our secondary levels, we do have a staff member who is assigned to assisting with that in-school suspension room. In your example you gave about that student maybe who struggled with behavior and maybe needed a different placement. Sometimes there's a student who might do worse in an in-school suspension room because then they're around other students who are having also behavior issues. They might connect with someone like yourself, the PE teacher, and maybe they do their in-school suspension in a different classroom, of course prearranged with the teacher. We wouldn't just plop them in there. But there are situations where in-school suspension can be effective for students as that reset time. But we do have that option for secondary where there's a staff member dedicated to a location. Sometimes it might be in the library. It might be in the back of, a lower grade level maybe their first grade teacher they did awesome with, and they're going to go back and do their in-school suspension in a different location. But they wouldn't engage, in those other fun activities like lunch or passing periods or maybe an after-school basketball game or something like that. They would just be removed from those activities for a temporary time.
Any other questions from the board? Christine, anything else for us?
Nothing else for you, although this is an action item.
Yeah.
So, okay.
I just wanted to make sure we covered it.
Oh.
I'm not going to blow you off.
Oh, thank you. I didn't. You want me to keep going?
No, but so anyway, yeah, this is an action item if somebody wants to make a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Rich?
I move that the Carson City School District Board of Trustees adopt the CCSD Restorative Discipline Plan for the 2024-2025 school year as submitted in accordance with NRS 392.4644.
Second.
Okay, motion by trustee Varner, second by trustee Walker, third by trustee Crossman. Any further board discussion? Seeing none, any public comment on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Christine, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, as we said, we pulled 9 and 10 from the agenda, so we're moving on to item 11. Discussion on newly proposed CCSD policy 1026, reasonable accommodations for victims of domestic violence or sexual assault. This is a first reading for discussion only. Mr. Sadler's presenting.
Thank you, President Cassiopolo, members of the board. Good evening. Bring before you tonight, we're getting towards the back end of the Phase 1 assessment review with Pool Pact. And so the first item on the agenda here for me is specific to Nevada revised statutes relating to providing reasonable accommodations for victims of domestic violence or sexual assault. And we'll entertain any questions that you might have.
Just a quick typo in the heading.
Yeah.
Sexual assault misspelled. Just a.
Thank you very much.
Anything else from the board? Okay, we good? All right, we're going to move on to item 12 then. Mr. Sadler, thank you. Item 12 is discussion on newly proposed CCSD Regulation 1026, reasonable accommodations for victims of domestic violence or sexual assault. Again, for discussion only, and this is the regulation part.
Thank you, President Cassiopolo, members of the board. This regulation details the specific procedures for accommodating employees who might be affected by domestic violence or sexual assault, including notifying the equal employer opportunity officer, ensuring that there's no retaliation. Again, this complies with state laws to support our employees in need of accommodations.
Yeah, I do have a question. On the regulation, on the very last sentence, any act of domestic violence or sexual assault was committed against the employee at the workplace. The policy doesn't clarify at the workplace or where it occurs. So I'm just kind of confused on that. Does it have to be committed at the workplace or just outside the workplace?
No, this is just specifically prohibiting that. As far as discharge, discipline, discrimination against anybody, if it was an act of domestic violence or sexual assault committed against an employee at the workplace.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions or comments on this?
Yeah, is that that's specific to the just confirming that is specific that the statute prohibits discrimination for an event that occurs, an
Correct.
assault that occurs in the workplace? In the
workplace.
Okay. Just wondering why you wouldn't include that for someone that's a victim of that assault wherever it takes place. But I understand being consistent with the statute.
As I'm reading it, it's prohibiting, like, for instance, there's some Title IX claim, or there's, somebody claims something happened to them at school, and that person doesn't get dismissed because it's kind of like the whistleblower provision is, in my mind. Ryan, is that kind of what that's pertaining to?
So the way the statute's written, to be specific at the workplace, because you couldn't take disciplinary action for something that happened to somebody outside of the workplace. The only jurisdiction we have is when they're at work or involved in work-related activities, unless it's, felonies or other reported offenses that would affect licensure. But in this regard in particular, it's specific to the workplace because that's where we have jurisdiction.
But the policy is if they're a victim outside the workplace?
Yeah, so if you read it, it's an or. If they request accommodations regardless of where something occurred or something happens at work, you can't take any disciplinary action against them.
Thank you. Very important policies.
Right, are we good with the regulation? Okay, we're going to move on to item 13. Discussion on newly proposed CCSD policy 1045, military leave. This is a first reading for discussion only. And again, Mr. Sadler.
Thank you, President Cassiopo, members of the board. And just to highlight too, just as a reminder of when we're looking at policies in the 1000s, that we're covering all employees, so it's not specific to one class of employee. This covers all employees. This policy ensures that the school district complies with the Uniformed Services Employment and Reemployment Rights Act. There's a long acronym there. Providing up to 15 days of military leave for employees in uniformed services, the protections of those employees for reemployment, seniority, accrual, and benefits. It also highlights the district's support for service members' well-being during and after their service. And certainly, should anybody who is an employee need to access this, we want to make sure that we have that covered in a policy.
So is this military leave, is that separate from personal leave, sick leave? This is like an additional 15 days that's just for military purposes?
Correct,
Like,
yeah.
Like
so,
a reservist going off to their annual training or something?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and the regulation will get a little bit more into specifics on that. It's actually quite lengthy because, well, we'll get to it when we get to it, but it does cover both what's in Nevada revised statutes and also the federal policy.
Sure.
So,
Okay. Any
but
questions?
it is 15 days afforded leave.
No, thank you for the clarification. Any questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 14. Discussion on newly proposed CCSD regulation 1045, military leave, also for discussion only. Mr. Sadler.
President Cassiopo, members of the board. So the regulation, as I had just highlighted, covers specifically what's in the federal law. It's kind of awkward in that it's listed as policy as the first header, but that was really trying to identify that this is what the policy at the federal level is. And then there's another header underneath that with notice and notification, compensation and benefits. Those are all elements that are in the federal plan. So I listed them that way. Specific for what leave without pay would look like, health insurance, seniority, retirement, death or disability, other leave, reemployments, and discharge. And then you'll see under number 2, military leave under Nevada revised statutes. Again, it's listed as policy because that's what's in the statute. So employees have the same rights covered, but it's worded differently as far as how it's applied through federal and statute. Obviously, the federal law is a little bit more specific in detail. And any questions that you have on that or anything you'd like me to cover?
Question about the health insurance. So when they're in unpaid status, I would assume that for most of these people, because they're in military service, they have benefits that they don't require COBRA. So, but if they needed to maintain that for their family or whatever, then they have to make those COBRA payments.
It could
Correct.
be, yeah. Sometimes we have employees who come to us from being in the military and they're transitioning into a civilian position, but they may stay in the Guard or something, but they stay on those military benefits often. So they can there can be different levels of coverage within their own individual policy, both with the military and the school district.
Okay.
Really just, this is a protection for them that if they were to be extended and that health insurance would expire. So typically that would be like if somebody, even like in a resignation situation, they'll have benefits through the remainder of the month, ensuring that they have the options for coverage for health insurance moving forward. Excuse me.
You good? Rich?
Go ahead, Molly.
Sorry about that. Because I'm not sure that, should we, never mind. Nah.
Rich?
Yeah, I'm just curious, do we have an existing policy? Is this, or did we not have a policy to begin with?
We do not have a policy. There is a policy, and I should have brought that to you, where military leave is listed, and there is no explanation other than it's just identified there. So that'll be something that I'll go back and clean up. This was specific to, again, the assessment through PUPAC, that we did not have anything identified other than that one sentence.
I'm glad you did that, because we all know that we had to watch out for our military and veterans.
Absolutely.
Okay, anything else on this item? Okay, thank you, Mr. Stadler.
Thank you very much.
So we're going to move on to item 15, approval of the consent agenda. This is for possible action. Motion and a second. Any board discussion? Seeing none. Any public comment on this item? Seeing none. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. Item 16, informational items for discussion only. Any discussion on the informational items? Molly? I don't know if
I do this every
Sure.
week.
we can't vote on it or anything, but
Can be no action, but if
No,
you have,
no,
if
no,
you have a
no.
piece of information you want to.
No, informational, I should have did it to my announcements as well. But tomorrow night is, and it's earlier than it's ever been, I think historically, but it is the boys soccer senior night.
boys
Tomorrow
soccer
night.
senior night?
Senior night, yeah, 13 seniors. So I invite you all to come. Mr. Fueling will be there escorting our players out onto the field, so.
Okay. Yeah, where and when?
Carson High. So it's at Carson High, and it will start, the game starts at 6:45, but senior night will start right after the JV game, so approximately 6:25, 6:30.
Okay.
Mhm.
Good, thank you. Okay, item 17, request for future agenda topics. Do we have any? Seeing none, we are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.